Selective inspection under risk-based oversight. In this webinar, we will be discussing who is eligible for selective inspection, the criteria required to qualify for selective inspection, the work that is eligible for selective inspection, why RBO benefits might be suspended, how defect ratios are calculated under RBO, the different types of defects and how the customer is notified of a defect. All contractors can benefit from RBO if they meet the eligibility requirements. The benefits of RBO include selective inspection, pre-authorized connections, same-day and after-hours emergency connections, small jobs visited at a 1 in 10 ratio by an inspector. Small job includes common items not requiring an overload relay trip current setting, such as receptacles, power outlets, and thermostats. Inspector visits of a 1 in 10 for HVAC wiring work. Inspector visits of 1 in 5 for pole line and high voltage substation maintenance. If you are familiar with the EFA's Authorized Contractor Program, you will notice that many of those features are continued under RBO with no annual fees. Selective inspection eligibility. First, let's cover eligibility for new accounts. A new account is any account where the first wiring notification is opened after RBO is launched. For a new account holder to qualify for selective inspection, you must have a minimum of 10 visited notifications within a rolling 12-month period. The period is calculated from the day the notification is opened, going back 1 year, and you must have an overall defect ratio of less than or equal to 4%. Until these requirements are met, new accounts have a 100% oversight recommendation. Now let's talk about existing accounts. An existing account is an account that is opened wiring notifications before RBO has been launched. To qualify for selective inspection, you must have at least 10 visited notifications within a 12-month rolling window. Once you qualify for benefits under RBO, the defect ratio is one of 9 attributes used to determine audit ratios. This means that even if your defect ratio is higher than the threshold, the risk assessment of the notification, low, medium, or high, using the 9 attributes, will determine the response. The higher the defect ratio, the more likely a notification will be assessed as high risk. It's important to know that all contractors move to 100% inspection recommendation when their notification volume drops below the minimum requirement of 10 in the last 12 months. In addition to the benefit of selective inspection, contractors may be eligible for pre-authorized connections for service upgrades and repairs done on residential and industrial, commercial, institutional, agricultural, or ICIA sites. Please note that pre-authorized services for service changes, upgrades, and repairs do not include new home service connections. Let's go over the requirements to qualify for residential pre-authorization. In order to qualify, you must have at least 5 residential service change, repair, or upgrade notifications created in the last 12 months. The notifications are limited to changes, repairs, and upgrades. New services are not considered notification volume count. To qualify for ICIA pre-authorization, you must have a minimum of 5 ICIA service change, repair, or upgrade notifications created within 12 months. The notifications are limited to changes, repairs, and upgrades. New services are not considered in notification volume count, and a defect ratio of less than or equal to 10%. Now let's go over pre-authorized connection requirements for residential service upgrades and alterations. Pre-authorized connections are permitted on a single-family dwellings with less than or equal to 200A, 120 over 240, 1 pH, an existing multi-ganged meter-based repair and upgrade with less than or equal to 200 amps, 120 over 240, 1 pH. Please note that residential services less than 200 amps is not eligible for pre-authorized connections. In addition, conversion from single-gang meter base to a multi-gang meter base or vice versa is considered to be a new service and not eligible for pre-authorized connections. Apartment service upgrades and alterations are not eligible for pre-authorized reconnections. The next topic is residential and industrial, commercial, institutional, and agricultural, or ICIA, pre-authorized reconnections for service upgrades and alterations. ICIA work with less than or equal to 400 amps, 120 over 240 volt, 1 pH, or 120 over 208 volt, 3 pH qualifies for pre-authorized reconnections. Please note that the scope of work that qualifies for pre-authorized reconnections does not include conversion from 1 pH to 3 pH or vice versa, and does not include delta Y conversion. In addition to the pre-authorized eligibility requirements we discussed, there are specific programs that allow for pre-authorized service connections. This chart provides a list of different services and their eligibility for pre-authorized connections. The chart reviews the specific requirements for each service: notification, time period, and defect ratio. The far right of the chart, pre-authorized eligible, indicates if the service is eligible for pre-authorized connections or not. If you see a check mark for low voltage service maintenance, the service is eligible. If you see an X, like the one for pools and hot tubs, the service is not eligible. You can see from the chart, RBO programs apply to electrical installations that are specific and or limited in scope. Eligibility is dependent on a contractor's notification volume and defect ratio. RBO programs allow ESA to apply a predefined visit ratio for eligible electrical work, overriding the Oversight response recommendation by the risk ranking. Let's go through a specific example. Pole line maintenance. The visit ratio for this service is 1 visit for every 5 notifications. To be eligible, a contractor must have 10 visited notifications specific to pole line maintenance within a 12-month period. The contractor must have a defect ratio of less than or equal to 4%, and pole line maintenance is eligible for pre-authorized connections. Now we'll cover why benefit eligibility might be suspended. The first reason a contractor might have their RBO benefit eligibility suspended is due to a defect ratio higher than the maximum allowed for the program. Benefits will be suspended if a defect ratio is higher than the maximum percent allowed over 3 or more consecutive months, depending on the type of notification. Contractors will receive a warning letter when they are not meeting minimum requirements. A contractor will receive 3 warning notices before benefits are suspended. Once benefits are suspended, it will take 3 consecutive months of good performance to qualify for benefits again. In other words, a defect ratio that is not above the maximum allowed and the minimum volume of notifications required for 3 consecutive months. If a contractor fails to file a notification or working without a permit 3 times within a 3-year period, benefits will be suspended. Benefits will be immediately suspended if a contractor leaves a life or property hazard at a site and/or there is unauthorized connection at the site. The next topic is defect ratios. Defect ratios are calculated by taking the number of defective sites visited and dividing that by the total number of sites visited. The number of defect notifications and notifications visited calculated for the previous 12-month rolling window and are recalculated at the end of each month. A technical defect is equal to 1 defective notification in the calculation. One change to defect ratios under RBO is that warning defects are included in the calculation. Warning defects are calculated at 1/5 of the value of a technical defect. The warning defects are cumulative per notification up to 1 technical defect or 1 whole defective notification. Warnings will also accumulate across multiple notifications. Administrative defects, such as no access, call when ready, incomplete fees, or defects flagged as postponement or disregarded, do not count toward the defect ratio. While important, particularly for specific program benefits, the defect ratio is only part of how a risk is assessed. If a contractor's defect ratio is one of 9 attributes, then a bad ratio does not necessarily mean that all work will be assessed as high risk. However, defects are heavily weighted in the calculation. The final topic in this webinar is feedback provided on administrative defects. When filing a notification, contractors are responsible to provide accurate and complete information. Administrative non-compliance defects are applied when the details provided on the notification do not match the work conducted on site. The first defect listed, notification information and fees, will always require action to correct the information given to ESA about the installation. This includes scope of work, complexity of work, and building classification. In addition, there are 3 new administrative defects under RBO that will be included on defect correspondence. These administrative defects are for ESA documentation only. If you receive one of these notices, no action is required. The new administrative defect responses are for accessibility, public exposure, and environmental factors. Thank you for watching the webinar on selective inspection eligibility. More information on RBO can be found on the ESA website at esasafe.com/RBO. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to email rbo@electricalsafety.on.ca.